This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Three, two, one.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to coverage of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna, Seca, Monterey, California, here on the iRacing Esports Network. I am James Pike, voice of Podium Esports, alongside Taylor Burris and Cisco Scarborough is our producer of the booth, and we are back for Series 2 of PCA Sim Racing, this time around with 911 RSR. We're going GTE GTLM racing this time around, as opposed to GT3 racing that we did in Series 1. Before we get the green flag, I'd like to bring in a very special guest to start off our broadcast. We have with us in the booth Jim Emig, the National Marketing Director for the Porsche Club of America. And Jim, I know that the process from getting us from Season 1 and Series 1 to Series 2 was very detailed, very intense, and very involved with the back end for PCA. So tell everybody watching at home what was taken into account and how you all were able to develop Series 2 out of Series 1.
Yes. First of all, welcome back, guys. And it's just exciting to have Series 2. Series 1 was incredible. We went into that as a club, Porsche Club of America, our first effort in the sim racing world. And we really didn't have any experience doing anything like this previously. So we wanted to learn and see what we could make of it. And, without any real understanding, we came into a Series 1 and ended up with a little over 70 drivers. And by the end of the 8 races, the eight live broadcasted races, we had almost 17,000 page views on YouTube. And we stepped back and said, wow, that was a lot of fun. Everyone really seemed to enjoy it. The racing was incredible. The broadcasts were fantastic. You guys did a stellar job. And we stepped back and said, yeah, this is kind of cool. And it's fun, and the members seem to like it. So we got to planning for Season 2. And, of course, tonight's the launch of Season 2. And we're very excited to go racing again.
Excited to go racing, especially since a few more prizes and a few more partners have come on board since we wrapped up Series 1. And I know you've got a little bit of news on that front, so go ahead and tell everybody at home what's in store for these drivers if they succeed.
Yes. The fun part of this is we got a lot of phone calls for people that wanted to be involved. We had emails and phone calls from members that wanted to learn more about the sport, this activity. And our goal this season is to share more about how to get involved, how to get into iRacing, and how to actually get to the level where they can compete with some of the guys you see in the race tonight. But we also got a lot of phone calls and emails from people that wanted to be involved in the series through sponsorship. And Fast Track Sims stepped up and said they wanted to give $50 to each person that qualified on the pole position for each race. So tonight's pole position qualifier will get $50 from Fast Track Sims. Porsche Cars North America also stepped up and wanted to provide the same grand prize they did for Series 1. So whoever wins the championship of the next 7 races, they'll get a trip to Porsche Experience Center in either Atlanta or Los Angeles and have a day of driving around the track in a GT3 or a Carrera T, the car of their choice, and lunch and a little prize pack from Porsche Cars North America. And Billy Smith, he won the Series 1 championship, and a whole bunch of the sim racers in that area, we all met Billy at the track, and several of the sim racers jumped in cars and they all drove around the track together in Atlanta and had a great time. So thanks to Porsche Cars North America, we'll continue that path and do the same thing again.
And we'll also see how these drivers tackle the challenge of having 50% fuel tanks and the extra strategy that will entail. They were pretty much good to go on fuel and tires for a good chunk of Series 1, but that won't be the case in Series 2,
Yes,
especially with this RSR. And I know that's
exactly.
a hit before we let you go here and get to the grid. So, Jim.
Yeah, real fast. So yeah, we wanted to make this series like the first a bit challenging, and so they got the RSR car, which is a little better handling, but they don't have enough fuel to finish the race. So it's going to be interesting to see what strategy each of these drivers play out.
They'll have to be on their toes. Jim, a big thank you to you and everybody at the PCA for your help and your support of PCA Sim Racing, and hopefully you get to enjoy the race tonight as much as we do. Big thanks for coming in and talking to us.
Hey, thanks, guys.
So there's Seca, National Marketing Director of the Porsche Club of America. And as we slide from that, we'll slide to the grid, and you'll hear the voice of Taylor Burris for the first time as William Levesque takes the pole and does indeed get that very, very handy pole position award from Fast Track Sims. It's the $50 and the bragging rights, and all of that coming courtesy of Fast Track Sims. And if you're not familiar with Fast Track Sims and the high-quality simulator cockpits they produce, go visit them online at www.fasttracksims.com for more information. Michael Polasek will start second. Third will be John Cook. Gresham Wagner will start from fourth. James Huth rolls off from fifth. Sixth will be Jason Lisner. Matthew Epstein will start from seventh. Eighth will be Leif Peterson. John Malia will be ninth. Matthew Kikas rolls off from 10th.
Leon Van Haydel will start in the 11th position, followed by Kenny Brown in 12th, with Brett Holmes in 13th. Liam Rositas will start in 14th, with Clifton Lipple in 15th. Mark Hughes will start in the 16th position, with Michael Masters in 17th. Charles Yao will start in 18th, with James Patak in 19th. And Michel Levesque will round out your top 20.
As they get set to go, green flag racing. A rolling start here at Laguna Seca to bring us underway. And we are green flag racing in Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. And everybody will make their way down this front straightaway and down the hill into the hairpin at Laguna Seca, this most famous of racing circuits in the United States on the West Coast. Everybody on their toes as they come into turn one, but looks like a pretty clean start for everybody all the way through. A little shuffling of positions through the field, but everybody in good shape as we push on, and everybody tries to sort their way through a very narrow section around the lagoon. But John Cook has managed to jump ahead of a whole host of people and has control of this race early on.
Had a car off coming out of the Andretti hairpin. It looked like to be the car 913 of Leif Peterson. Had a car. He's now back out on track, but unfortunate for him, he's lost a lot of ground after starting inside the top 10.
So Peterson will try and regroup, and in the meantime, they're all trying to run down Cook. And Jason Lisner's done a pretty good job of that already as they come into the corkscrew for the first time. This oh-so-tricky, oh-so-difficult section. You run up the hill, you lose the bottom of the car just with the way the elevation changes. You have to be very careful about how you get on the brakes, even with this 911 RSR, which is a little bit easier in the braking zones to drive than that 911 GT3 that we started Series 1 with. But still, very, very tricky to manage all around.
So far, everyone coming out of one of the slowest corners here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, that turn 11. Everyone making it through nice and smoothly right now. Single file pretty much throughout most of the top 20, but still some great battling as we work further back through the field as they're starting to separate a little bit.
Everybody's starting to separate, and William Levesque beginning to pull away from this field over Michael Polasek by about 1.2 seconds. Gresham Wagner coming in, putting a nice run so far in third. Cook sitting in the fourth spot. He gave it the spot to Wagner, and everybody's just sort of spaced out. The first real battle that I could see, Leon Van Handel and John Malia for 9th and 10th at the moment, and there's a nice little pack. You've got Leon Rositas, who's a Series 1 veteran, in there as well. Brett Holmes very close to all of this as everybody makes their way up the hill and towards the corkscrew once again.
Yeah, they're coming up the Ray Hall Straits, making that climb to make it up to the corkscrew. Everyone now heavy onto the braking zone. They make down the corkscrew, probably the most famous corner in all of American motorsports. And so far, no major issues through that section of the course as they're now coming out of Rainy.
They slide their way down the hill once again, and very tricky, sort of double apexy corners, places where you have to manage the gear shifts quickly because it all happens so fast. It's not a heavy braking zone, but just tricky enough to where you've got to be on your toes. But then again, I think for the most part, that's the entirety of Laguna Seca. It's not a huge racetrack. It's a relatively narrow racetrack, and It just doesn't really allow for breathing room like you'd find at, say, maybe VIR or Watkins Glen circuits that might be a little bit wider.
Yeah, this is a very difficult track. One false move could put you into the sand trap or worse, into one of the tire barriers and end your day very quickly. So drivers are having to tiptoe, make sure they hit their braking points as best as they can, but also keep an eye on what's going on around them as far as their competition or of any other drivers who decide to take it off track or spin their car around.
As everybody just continues to push on here, and a pretty impressive run already from William Levesque, who's up on Polosek by about 2 seconds. You've got Levesque, who hails from the Rennsport region of the PCA. If you're not familiar with your PCA geography and the over 150 regions that the PCA features across North America, the Rennsport region covers a lot of big cities in Canada, Ottawa, and then Montreal, Quebec City, and most of the province of Quebec. Not a surprise with the very French state that Levesque has, that the Rennsport region driver hails from there and is setting sail on the field. Polosek in second.
Ooh, trouble coming out of Rainy Curve right now. That looks like one of the Porsches has gone around as they are approaching turn 10. Going to be Michel Levesque, who had made contact with several cars. He got his car turned back around, but is able to continue on, but he has lost a ton of position. He's going to be outside the top 20 at least.
Might need a little bit of luck from his brother to sort of rub off and help him get back out through the field. But as I was saying, Polosek in the northern New Jersey region covers Newark and a lot of the suburbs south of New York City. So everybody from the Northeast putting in very strong runs. Not too many Californians in this race. As I look down through the field and I try and piece them together, I think there might just be Francois Grayling out of, well, actually, no, not Grayling. I blank because Florida trips me up and it makes me good. Grayling hailing from the Gold Coast region. That's Miami and most of South Florida. I was looking for Sahib Khalsa and company from the Golden Gate region. He's the lone Golden Gator in this Series 2, and that would be, I think, effectively the home region of the PCA for at least this race so far as the registered drivers are concerned.
Yeah, a lot of those Gold State Club drivers want to have a good show for their home track here on the schedule. But don't worry, several other drivers will have their chance of trying out some of their home tracks, as we have quite a large, especially American tracks here for this series, as we'll continue later on in the season.
Also, no surprise that I see the Upper Canada region support in chat already going nuts as Liam Redzitz is putting together a pretty solid run, currently scored in the 11th position with the... if my memory serves me correctly, I believe that is supposed to be the 1998 GT1 paint job or something very similar to it that Redzitz is running. But in any case, no surprise to see a lot of folks from the Upper Canada region in full voice and support. They were very active in chat in Series 1, and I have a feeling they're probably going to be very active in chat in Series 2 as well. But main point here, you've got people from all over North America racing in this series. You've got Upper Canada. We mentioned Northern New Jersey and Rennsport. We've got, I believe, no less than 8 drivers from the Peach State region represented in this series, covering the greater Atlanta area. We've got drivers representing San Francisco, Alberto Fonseca covering Seattle and the Northwest, and some new regions here in Series 2 as well. John Sinclair from the Ozark region, which covers most of Arkansas, is in here. We've got 2 drivers from the Space Coast region around Cape Canaveral and eastern central Florida, also part of this series, making their debut. Leon Van Handel, who's up in the top 10, comes from the Kansas City region, another new region for the PCA SRS. In the meantime, though, we'll focus on a veteran of Series 1 who's showing the same sort of speed that he had in Series 1. Jason Lisner out of the First Settlers region, which covers the stretch. Effectively, if you draw a straight line between Virginia Beach and Richmond, that area, the historical home of the Jamestown Settlement and all, hence why the First Settlers region has such a name. But Lisner currently running in a very, very solid spot, has the 5th position, and trying to hold Matthew Epstein at bay. Epstein, a debutant in Series 2 and trying to make his mark.
Epstein had a great run coming out of the corkscrew, but as we see as they come through the Rainy Curve, Lisner just was able to get the power down a lot quicker through that section of the course and is able to pull away as they go down into turn 10.
And everybody goes nuts for Epstein. And of the drivers in this field, he's closer to home than most of them. Epstein hails from the Orange Coast region. If you like your colors and coast mixed up, we had Gold Coast earlier that covers South Florida. Orange Coast covers the area just south of Los Angeles and Anaheim. So Huntington Beach, Long Beach, Costa Mesa, the home region for the Long Beach Grand Prix whenever they show up in town. That's where Epstein hails from. So I think, if my math is right, he is the highest running Californian in this race. And to do well at a California racetrack, I think, is something that he will most definitely take in his cap and plant that feather in nicely, put things together. As we slide a little bit further back of the field, we'll take a look at Kenny Brown, who is one of those Pete Staters, one of the 8 in this series. They come from Atlanta and the greater Atlanta area, trying to work over Mark Huth, and that would be for the 12th position as they begin to make their way up the hill.
Mark Hughes doing a great job trying to hold off the likes of Kenny Brown as they make the run up the Ray Hall Straight, getting ready to go into the corkscrew. Brown about separated by 2 car lanes as they're hitting the brake markers to go down the corkscrew. Let's see how late we see Kenny Brown go. He is able to close the gap quite a bit, but Hughes was able to pull the way as they come out of there through the rainy curve. Both drivers having a great steady line to set up for turn 10, this double apex, as they're now hitting the curbing just perfectly to set up for the final corner, turn 11. And there we see Kenny Brown late in the braking, almost matched a little contact as they come off turn 11. Has to back out just a little bit to prevent any more damage to the back bumper of Mark Hughes as they go down the front straightaway into turn 1.
Yeah, Brown definitely, I think, better on corner entry and in the braking zones, but Hughes getting a little bit better run out of the corners, and that's how he's able to maintain his mount. Hughes, one of the drivers from the St. Louis region of the PCA, which is one of the few self-explanatory regions of the PCA. I have to wonder where he might be from. Not necessarily sure if the name really tells me anything. Wink, wink. But in either case, strong runs from both of them. As we remind you all watching at home that there's so much more to the PCA than just sim racing. There's a whole host of events that you can get involved with because there are over 3,500 events that are held by Porsche Club of America regions annually across North America. Between the 10 national events and the thousands of regional events each year, there's an event for every Porsche enthusiast in the PCA. PCA hosts autocross events, concours d'elegance, driver's education classes, driving tours, social events, and tech sessions. And for more information, you can find out more on the web at pca.org/events.
You know what, James? There's also one more thing that some of these fans need to realize is, of course, how to get involved. There's the Porsche Club of America is the largest single marquee car club in the world with over 135,000 members across North America. There is also 145 PCA regions throughout the United States and Canada, so that you can get involved locally with your fellow Porsche owners. If you're not already a member of the Porsche Club of America, PCA membership is only $46 per year. PCA membership includes a subscription to their award-winning magazine, Porsche Panorama, and access to the members-only section of the PCA.org website. To join PCA, visit www.pca.org/join Porsche Club of America.
Join Porsche Club America if we're going to get very specific, or I guess Pacific, since we're out here on the Pacific coast. But in either case, yes, as we ride on board with the number 28 machine of Gresham Wagner, who currently sits in the 3rd spot. But that's a big piece of Porsche Club of America's sim racing, and that you have to be a member of the Porsche Club of America, either a fully registered one or a test drive member, in order to participate in the PCA SRS. So every single one of these drivers is a part of the PCA in some form, which means that they all own Porsches in some form and have experience running Porsches in real life. Just maybe not necessarily this particular Porsche, because this is the most high-powered 911 you're going to find on a racetrack more often than not. They obviously have the 911 GT3 spec, but this is the more high-powered GTLM spec that you see the factory teams for Porsche, both in Europe and in North America, run in the World Endurance Championship in GTLM and in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship with IMSA here in North America in the GTLM class there.
And of course, one thing to think about this, James, in September for the opening round of the WEC, we'll actually see the brand new RSR 911 Porsche that will be released for the racing community here pretty soon at Silverstone.
Are you excited? Because you should be excited.
I am.
It looks gorgeous, to be fair.
It's by far, I mean, Porsche, it says so much elegance with their cars and just so much power. I mean, I'm a very big fan of Porsche and always look forward to seeing these cars on the track. The sound of a Porsche when it goes by on the racetrack, whether you're watching at Silverstone, VIR, or Daytona, or Le Mans, of course, for some of those who get to go to those events, just hearing that car come down the straightaways is just awestruck.
I think the simplest way to put it is to just use the tagline that Porsche AG has made so famous over the years, because I think there really is a lot of truth to it, that there is no substitute. And there's really nothing else like a Porsche out there, which is why it's so much fun to see these drivers go after it in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. As we may have a battle for second brewing between Gresham Wagner and Michael Polasek. They start climbing up the hill and trying to figure out how they're going to work their way around the lap car of Francois Grayling.
Francois Grayling in that number 10 car, currently sitting in the 35th position, makes way for the top second and third positions through the corkscrew, holds up Wagner just a little bit as John Cook as well closes in on this battle. So we now have a 3-car battle for second as they come out of the rainy curve and go into turn 10.
Should be very entertaining, especially if Polasek ends up getting on the brakes a little bit awkwardly in this corner, and/or if Wagner and Cook can run him down in these braking zones. Certainly a possibility here, but they've also got to be careful because we didn't get the chance to hit this at the beginning of the broadcast. But one of the changes from Series 1 to Series 2, and one of the big changes outside of the fuel tanks, are new rules with regards to incident points. Those of you who are regulars on the iRacing eSport Network will know of the incident point system that gives drivers points for running off track or running into walls or other cars. And if drivers rack up 15 incident points, they must come down pit road and serve a pass-through penalty. And then, for every 5 incident points they include on top of that 15, they have to come down pit road and serve a penalty again. So, you won't get disqualified like you might in an official iRacing race, but you will lose a lot of time compared to the drivers you're racing around. And it is therefore very, very important to make sure that you don't rack up 15 incident points over the course of these hour-long races.
Right now, we are approaching 20 minutes have passed here on the clock here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. The battle is still going strong as we're 44 minutes to go. Still quite a long ways to go for these drivers, but the battle for that second position between Polasek, Wagner, and Cook still raging on as they come off of turn 11. Nose to tail, these 3 Porsches making the run up the front straightaway into turn 1 and getting ready to hit the braking zone of the Andretti hairpin.
Coming down the hill to the Andretti hairpin as Polasek actually managed to jump ahead of Wagner and Cook just a little bit. He's got about half a second on Wagner, and then Cook's just sort of sitting right there. And then you slide a little bit further back. You've got a great battle between Jason Lisner and Matthew Epstein. They're just sitting there, rolling in 5th and 6th as we go further back. Matthew Kikas and Leon Van Handel also pretty tight with one another. And then you've got Mark Huth, Liam Radzitis, James Patak, all sitting in 13th, 14th, and 15th. Those 2 very tight together. You go a little bit further back in this field, Rich Minkler all over Charles Yao. That's for 17th and 18th. And then Cameron Leslie, David Stewart, and at least at some point, I thought Jonathan Walton was going to be a little bit closer, but Leslie and Stewart in particular racing hard for 23rd and 24th.
And they're just now getting by one of the lap traffic cars of Donald Binkley as they come out of the Andretti hairpin. He's currently sitting in the 36th position, Binkley, as Stewart was able to quickly get by as they come out of turn 3 and get ready to make the run down into turn 4.
They'll all try and figure out how they want to sort through all this, and surprise, surprise, Stewart, another one of the Upper Canada region drivers who are so prominent in the chat. But definitely have a lot of love for that group, which spans the good chunk of Ontario and also covers the greater Toronto area as well. So if you celebrated an NBA title recently, you probably have a vested interest in cheering for the Upper Canada region drivers too. poking our nose through the field a little bit here and trying to see where the best battles on track are going to be. I kind of like the idea of going to Huth and Rositas because those two have been pretty much attached at the hip for a good chunk of the race, currently in 12th and 13th at the moment. And well, I was about to say they were attached at the hip, and then the commentator's curse came alive and well, and Rositas managed to get sideways going through, I believe that might have been turn 4. James Patak was able to clear Rositas, so Patak moves up to 13th. Rositas slides back into 14th.
Small mistakes can cost you big time, as we see Patak was able to get by Rositas very quickly as they make the climb up the Rahal Straight and head towards the corkscrew. Rositas may be able to lose quite a bit of ground right now. It's about 3 car lengths separate him, but he's going to go late into the braking zone in the corkscrew to try to close that back down to about a 2 car length advantage as they make the run through the rainy curve. We see Patak able to hold off Rositas into turn 10, that double apex corner. You have to time it just right to be able to get it through there, as I believe a car might have went off. Nope, she's all clear right now. Oh, there's Jake Steinbrink right there, who had a little bit of issues, quickly getting out of the way of those 2 drivers battling.
Trying to slide out. So Mark Huth gets to run away with this and has a little bit of breathing room all of a sudden, with the tune of about 3 seconds. And Patak hasn't really been able to drive away from Rositas, but certainly just sort of maintaining at the moment, making sure that he doesn't end up in too much trouble himself. The very distinct plaid paint schemes of Patak ensure that you will most certainly be able to spot him on the racetrack whenever he is on camera, and he is another one of the Peach State cohort. We know how successful the Peach State Region Sim Racing Series here on iRacing, one of the most successful regional series in all of the PCA in iRacing. So no surprise to me that the Peach State region is the best represented by number region in the entirety of this PCA SRS. I don't think there's another region that has anywhere close to the number of drivers registered that the Peach State does. I think the next closest one might be Chicago, which has 4, and thought maybe Metro New York might have 4, but no, it is indeed Chicago that is next in line with 4 drivers representing the Chicagoland region in this PCA SRS Series 2.
Right now, looking through the field, a battle going on still strong for that 5th position between Lesnar, Epstein, and Huth as well. This is James Huth, who is in the battle, as he almost makes a little bit of contact with Robert Go as they come out of turn 5, but he was able to avoid contact as they're making the run to turn 6. Epstein had a great opportunity coming out of turn 11 to get by Lesnar, but was not able to close the deal as they're making the run down into turn 7. To make the run up the Rahal Straight and towards the corkscrew.
As everybody shuffles around in the corkscrew and tries to sort themselves out in all this madness as they try and piece together everything that will come in the second half of the PCA SRS opener.
I believe there might have been an issue with the likes of Alberto Fonseca as we try to see what happens to him.
See if we can piece together what happened to Fonseca, but I don't necessarily think we were able to catch it the first time around, so we'll see if replay tells us anything. In the meantime, though, he's got the leader, William Levesque, right behind him. Levesque is going to duck underneath him as they go into turn 4 and just slide right down to the inside and get the run up into, I believe that would be turn 5 and is turn 5 as they make their way around the lagoon itself and begin to work their way up the hill towards the bridge and then the Rahal Straight.
Looking through right now, I think Fonseca was okay, but I did see Brinkley having some issues and going into the entrance of the corkscrew. He went off track, but was able to get back on track as well very quickly after letting some of the lead lap cars go by.
China. So, everybody in that little trio in the front-ish of the field, second, third, fourth, all still together. Epstein still hanging on to Lisner's rear wing. James Huth has managed to make himself part of this battle too. And then a little bit more gap now between Mark Huth and Patak and Rositas and Matthew Kikas now all over Michael Masters. That might be a good battle to go to since we haven't really had the chance to talk about either one of those drivers yet tonight. Kikas, one of 3 drivers from the Carolinas region, home region of yours truly. So there's a little bit of pride there, but that covers most of central North Carolina and a little bit of South Carolina, too. It takes care of the Triad, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, Charlotte, and then the Greenville-Spartanburg metro area, all part of the Carolinas region of the PCA there. And then Michael Masters is the other driver in this battle. And Michael Masters is from the Space Coast region. As you see, Kikis managed to get around Masters and take the position, but Masters from right around Cape Canaveral and NASA's most famous launch pad, which was just so handy in getting us to the moon and getting all the space shuttles up in the air some 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yes, indeed. And currently with Kikas also in the same region as myself for currently right now before I head back to the state of Florida where I could be in the same region as Masters. So watching these two is kind of a bit of a tug and pull of which one to pull for as far as with the two different regions that's close to home.
We'll keep the barbecue. You get the gator tail. That seems like a fair trade.
That seems like a good fair trade as well.
I take that. So also of note here, just sort of enforce it and show it in action. We have the first 15 incident point infraction as Michael Polisek, I think, managed to go a little bit wide, and now he's got company here. Looks like Gresham Wagner is going to go to his outside, see if he can get the spot away from Michael Polisek, and they're going to go side by side into three. This is a battle for second, and Polisek's going to give the spot up, and it will be Wagner who now goes into second.
Wagner went a little bit off course, though. This could give the chance for Polisek to try to close the gap as we see some lap traffic ahead of Michael Knighton now, who's easily just pulls to the side, lets these three cars battle it out as Polisek got into the gravel trap a little bit, almost loses the car just a tad, but was able to keep car control to the best limit as we're now looking through the field right now. A couple of cars are getting some penalties right now. So that means these cars will have to come down pit road to serve their penalties for their incident point infractions.
That was the point that I was about to make before we had this battle shape up between Wagner and Polisek. That their first few drivers had picked up their 15 point on the incident counts, and we have a few drivers that in turn are beginning to serve their pit road penalties as a result. So a little bit of a change in this series as we see, looks like
it looks like Jake Steinbrück as well as Shabala Banyopa had issues who had those penalties issued out for them. So they will have to come down pit road to serve a time penalty, and then they will be allowed back out on the track until if they serve another 5-point infringement to where they'll have to come back down pit road to serve those penalties. Looking through the field right now, that battle still for that second position between Wagner and Polisek, starting to get a little bit of a gap between them as John Cook also lost some ground due to the fact of the lap traffic of Matthew Mitchell.
I was about to say that Cook got held up going into turn 11 and got trapped by some of the lap cars. So that's where the second and change gap from Polisek to Cook comes from for the most part. And then he slide a little bit further back, and you got Matthew Epstein trying to run down Jason Lisner, and that would be for 5th and 6th, but he also is working his way through lap traffic.
Ooh, Polisek is now possibly going to try to take a look to the outside of Wagner, but couldn't quite get it because of the lap traffic, but he's now going to try to set up as they get ready to go into turn 10, backs off a little bit, try to see if he can get a run into turn 11. Who's going to be brave to break later into the turn 11? They're still going to be nose to tail as they come off. Polisek, though, definitely trying to find a way to get back out on the run to get by Wagner.
As they all try and piece themselves together, Wagner has got second for the moment, but Polisek not letting him go and not letting him escape. And we know that Polisek has got speed. He was consistently one of the fastest drivers in Series 1, so no surprise that he's up here fighting for a podium finish in Series 2.
Right around now, this is when we will start seeing the pit road strategies come into play, when drivers will come down to fuel their cars. Since we're halfway now, so probably between now and about maybe the 35 to 40 minute mark is when we'll see these drivers come down pit road to get the needed fuel and tires for their cars.
Polisek got a pretty good run coming up the Rahal straight, and they'll go side by side into the corkscrew, and he tried to take it outside of Wagner in maybe the most dangerous place on this circuit, but then thought better of it, so he'll back up, try and get behind Wagner in the rainy curve, and just throws a little blink at the headlights to remind Wagner that he is, in fact, still there. Play a little mind games in this race.
And with those two battling, John Cook has able to start reeling them back in just a little bit. But unlike our race leader, William Levesque, he has pulled out to a 10-second lead. So Levesque doing a really great job here. Definitely knows how to handle this course here at WeatherTech Raceway.
The Canadians are coming, and they've invaded and taken over very clearly as Levesque absolutely dominating this race and putting on a show. And maybe not a surprise, I think, to some degree, because Levesque also happens to be the one driver in this entire series with a world-class license, the Black Stripes, as they're called here on iRacing and in the iRacing community. But those are reserved for the fastest drivers and the most professional drivers in iRacing, and depending on whatever discipline you might be racing in, whether or not it's dirt oval, dirt road, paved oval, or in this case, paved road. That's the one we're looking at now. And Levesque has the highest license out of anyone in this field. So the man from the Rensport region putting on a show coming south across the border and absolutely just flogging them here for the most part at Laguna Seca. 10 seconds and 30 minutes is a very, very impressive stretch indeed.
It is, and it just shows the pure dominance that he's put on and what he's probably going to have to offer for us for the entire season. So a lot of these drivers are going to have to try to find out different strategies in order to see if they can find a way to dethrone this world-class driver. And I mean, they might have to consider maybe pitting early, but due to the fact of just how much of a lead he has right now, it's going to be quite a tall order for him.
Going to be a very tricky one, as I can tell you that Matthew Epstein has pulled it behind the wall, and Epstein has called it an evening. So he will wrap up tonight's race a little bit further back in this field, probably right around the 30th position, as Levesque continues to lead and work around the lap cars, gets around David Stewart on the outside. So two Canadians racing side by side, and what is a very strong Canadian contingent across the country here in the PCA SRS. And then we get a little bit further back, and Polisek still just sitting there, not necessarily really pressuring Wagner outright on every corner, but he's close enough to where if Wagner decides to slip up just a little bit, there will be room for Polisek to make a move and make something happen. And then once you go through there, it's a while before you get to a really good battle. And the next really good battle on track would be Leon Van Handel and Mark Huth racing for 10th and 11th, as we have the first cars hitting pit road for service here at Laguna Seca.
Yes, Michael Polisek will be the first one to blink by the looks of it out of the top three here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Coming down pit road. Pit road speed's about 35 miles an hour. Make sure that pit limiter is on. As he comes to his pit box, he will probably take 4 tires and fuel. We could see some drivers, though, not take any tires at all. It's just a matter as we see these drivers trying to complete their pit stops right now, as we also see David Stewart. He's about a lap down. He's sitting in that 25th position, as about 19 cars are still on the lead lap here.
But the main story here to pay attention to, Michael Polisek has completed what should be his one pit stop for this race. And this is the same strategy that we saw him run in the Stock Car Challenge series on Sunday nights over on the Podium Esports Network, our regular home for action here at Podium Esports. But we took Class A stock cars to Daytona, and Polisek short-pitted everybody and managed to get the track position initially, but the lap times that he ran were about a second to a second and a half slower than the drivers around him once everybody cycled through their pit stops. So Polisek might gain some track position here, and I think probably will be able to jump ahead of Wagner, but Wagner should have the fresher rubber when he comes down for service, I would guess, next time by, because he's decided to stay out this time by, and we'll see if Wagner can keep in touch with Polisek once he comes out of pit road, as John Cook will come to pit road and get service from the third position.
With this, we might see William Levesque come down pit road within the next lap or two, as he's working his way out of turn 4, heading to run towards turn 5. I mean, just doing a dominating performance right now in that beautiful 144 Porsche. Currently just working his way through lap traffic, as he's pretty much has clean space right now, so no issues. And by the looks of it, another car has taken it behind the wall. Leon Van Handel decided to end his night here at WeatherTech Raceway.
So Van Handel done for the evening. Cook is done with his service, as is James Huth. John Malia came in for service as well. Kenny Brown is on pit road at the moment, as is James Patak. So a lot of the back half of the top 10 coming in for service as everybody works lap 24-25. If you're on the lead lap here at Laguna Seca, we have just under half this race left to go. Once these pit stops cycle through, we will bring you the iRacing Midway race break, but we'll wait to see where everyone sorts out in all of this and where everybody comes in as your leader, William Levesque, comes in for what should be his one stop of the evening.
Looks like also Wagner will be coming down pit road as well. Lisner as well. So the rest of our top front runners inside the top 5, top 6 have come down to complete their pit stop here. Trying to see if any other front. Rositas has now come in as well. So this is it. This is the lap where we'll see all of our main drivers and front runners come down pit road to make their one pit stop.
Wagner's finally in for service, as I suspected. Lisner is in from third on track at the moment. Charles Yao is in. Michael Neiden, Joseph Stiefel, Alberto Fonseca, amongst others, in for service. Just about everybody else covered. Liam Rositas coming in for service as well. So, as it stands, pretty much as you were, I think, for the most part, as we try and figure out where everyone shakes out in this. Is I think, if anything, Wagner was able to open it up over Pulisic just a little bit. It's now about 5 seconds between the 45 and the 28. So Wagner with a really solid pit stop to maintain his gap to Levesque and open it up on Pulisic just a bit.
John Cook right now has just completed his pit stop here recently. He is going to be back out on the track. Currently sitting around the top 5, but after timing and scoring comes around, it could change just a little bit. But he is all over the back bumper of Michael Polasek as they make the run into the corkscrew. As we see them going down there, Cook putting as much pressure as he can, as he has the fresher tires by a couple of laps. But Polasek has the temperature in the tires as they come out of the rainy curve into turn 10. Let's see what Cook can do as we see Polasek able to pull that gap as they come out of turn 10. Here they go into turn 11 with lap traffic in front of them. So this is going to be a little interesting to see how these two can slice their way up through lap traffic as they come across the line. They are still going to be sitting in that 3rd and 4th position. So a great effort, but lost a ton of time to the likes of Wagner as we see his cars going 2 by 2 into the Andretti hairpin. So this is going to cause us to be able to stack up just a little bit.
Everybody just trying to work their way, and it was tiptoed through the tulips even for some of the lap cars, as well as David Stewart had to check up just a bit to make sure he didn't get into Lane McNeil. So they all sort themselves out, but everybody cleanly around one another. Lap cars out of the way, and the battle between Polasek and Cook can resume. That's your best battle up at the front of this field by far. You've got about 7 seconds to go up the road from this battle before you get to Wagner, and then another 9 seconds from Wagner's front bumper to Levesque's rear bumper in the race lead. And beyond these two, the next closest battle on track would be Liam Rositas and Jason Lisner for 10th and 11th. Believe at this point, looks like everyone has completed their pit stop, so it is time for us to take our iRacing Midway race break, which is brought to you, as always, by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing from the Australian Supercars, the Cars Tour, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. William Levesque is your race leader by just under 10 seconds over Gresham Wagner. Michael Polasek and John Cook fighting for 3rd and 4th at the moment. James Hoot runs in 5th ahead of John Malia in 6th. Brett Holmes runs in the 7th position at this time. Kenny Brown out of the Peach State region is 8. Mark Hoot sits in 9th. And then Jason Lisner rounds out your top 10 with 27 laps complete.
Liam Rositas will sit in, actually now it's going to go to James Patak in the 11th position, with Liam Rositas in the 12th position, followed by Matthew Kukis in the 13th position. Followed then by Clifton Lippel in the 14th position, with Michel Levesque rounding out your top 15 and the last car on the lead lap, with Rich Minkler sitting in 16th position, followed by Carlos Lopez in 17th. Jonathan Schum is currently sitting in the 18th position, with Cameron Leslie in 19th, and David Stewart rounding out your top 20.
21st, Michael Masters. 22nd is Charles Yao. Jonathan Waltman sits in 23rd. 24th is Bruce Robinson. Joseph Steifel runs in 25th. 26th is Alberto Fonseca. Last car 1 lap down. Michael Knight, his first car 2 laps down in 27th. 28th belongs to Robert Go. And then Dewey Kang and Jonathan Patterson run in 29th and 30th.
Start currently sitting in the 31st position is Shabala Banyopia in the 31st position with Matthew Mitchell in 32nd. Jake Steinbrink is currently sitting in 33rd with Francois Grayling in 34th. Donald Binkley is currently sitting in the 35th position with Leon Van Handel is 36th out of the race, along with Matthew Epstein in 37th, Lane McNeil in 38th, and Leif Peterson, one of your early elite drivers who were out of the race, in 39th.
And that will conclude tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 80,000 drivers on the service and over 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, you can visit iRacing.com today. As Cuck finally, I thought he might have found a hole to get underneath Polisek Rainey, but didn't quite find it there, so he might have to go after it in turn 11. And we apologize to the driver of the number 770. We'll admit that there are a few names that I think I've seen on iRacing that might be as tricky as they work their way through lap traffic and get back on the front straightaway. But few names I think that are as tricky to pronounce that I've seen in iRacing as Shaibal Bandyopadhyay. That's a tongue twister and a half, I think, for anybody.
Still, though, I mean, that battle right now for the second position still heating up as Polisek trying to find a way forward to get by John Cook. This battle for third as they come out of the Andretti hairpin and turn 3. Still going to be nose to tail. Cook did try to put it on the outside, but Polisek was able to shut the door and able to keep that nose clean. But here comes Cook with the draft to try to find a way to get by. He's now going to back off, take a look to the outside, try to maybe the undercut as they come out of turn 5. Polisek gets into the gravel trap. Here comes Cook as they're going to go side by side into turn 6.
And most importantly, Cook's got the inside, and Polisek has no choice but to let him by. So John Cook now up into the third position, and Cook will try and continue his march towards the front of this field and see if he could go run down Gresham Wagner and William Levesque. But a big run for Cook here in his debut out of the Chicago region, really putting on a show, doing a nice job in the 997 machine. We'll also remind you, while we have a moment, didn't get the chance to touch on it just a moment ago, but want to remind you that Porsche Club of America Club Racing is a huge part of the PCA, and it has more than 2,000 licensed drivers and 32 sanctioned races per year. PCA Club Racing provide classes for all Porsche sports cars so the members can enjoy safe, clean, and organized racing. And for more information, you can find out everything you need to know about PCA Club Racing at www.pcaclubracing.org. Also, we'll remind you that the setups for Series 2 of PCA Sim Racing are proudly presented by Tanner McCullough of Setups for i.Racing. And you can log on Setups for i.Racing to go find their Discord server and learn more about how to get the most out of your iRacing setup. Waiting to see how this battle will shape up amongst the front group. Levesque, Wagner, and Cook are pretty well separated amongst themselves. Polisek, who slipped back of Cook by about 2 seconds, and now is in the clutches of James Huth, who I think a lot of people from Series 1 will remember quite well. Huth, who had the most sportsmanlike of moves to give the lead back to Billy Smith and Michael Polisek when those two tangled in turn 1 at Watkins Glen. That was race 4 of Series 1. But Huth, the lone driver in this series out of the Hudson-Champlain region of the PCA, which covers a lot of the Hudson River Valley in New York up to the state capital in Albany. But Huth with a strong run here once again out of the Hudson-Champlain region and now trying to take away a spot from Polisek. This would be for the 4th position if he can complete the pass.
I do got to say that area is quite beautiful, especially the Lake Champlain area. I mean, beautiful piece of area. But right now, the battle for that 7th position is starting to heat up just a little bit between the likes of the 06 of Brett Holmes and Kenny Brown in the 23 as they come out of the Andretti hairpin.
Also, very interesting. Looks like there's a little bit of a fan club for Huth here in the top 5. We've got some buddies of his, Ben and Huron from that Hudson Champlain Valley region. Everybody hanging out, watching the race from Lime Rock Park. And I have a feeling that they're going to have a very, very busy day at Lime Rock tomorrow. And why wouldn't you, to be fair? That's an incredibly fun course, and also is going to be part of the Series 3 schedule for the PCA. A little bit later on in the fall, we'll visit Lime Rock Park with the 911 GT3 cars. That's an experience, I think, more than anything else. That may be one of the most fun car track combos I've seen in any PCA SRS race. Though I will also throw this track here up for strong consideration. I am a very, very unabashed Laguna Seca fan, and also a fan of close quarters racing, which I think we're about to see between Polisek and Huth, who goes to the outside at the Andretti hairpin to try and take away the spot and gets held up by the lap traffic and has to duck back in line, and actually is going to lose a little bit of ground. They just caught Dewey Kang in the worst spot on the racetrack, and especially for Huth, he's stuck on the outside and just can't really go anywhere. I think he's going to be able to get around Kang at this point, but lost quite a bit of time to Polisek, and now is going to have to spend the next few minutes gathering that time back up.
Yeah, they were able to go by one of the cars that hit the tire barrier of Donald Binkley. Had a little bit of trouble, but able to get back out on track right now. But for the most part, a lot of these lap drivers are being very polite with the lead lap cars, letting them by, not giving too much of a fight for the most part. As we see Polisek now getting ready to approach the corkscrew, trying to find a way to get by the likes of the 150 of Robert Go as he looks to the inside, now outside. Here comes Hugh, who now comes trying to make a pass before they get to the rainy curve, as they're now separated nose to tail they go. Hoof gets a great run as they make the run into turn 10, but Polisek tries hard to defend as they come out of turn 10.
Polisek trying to just really, really make that rear end of his 911 as wide as he possibly can, but it just just enough. At least at the moment, it's just enough, as he actually got a really good exit out of 11 down the front stretch and opened it up on Huth a little bit, as Huth is just trying to avoid some of the lap traffic that's battling behind him. But then Polisek slides on the entry into the Andretti hairpin, and that might bring Huth right back to the rear bumper of the 45 once again.
Well, Huth's got to worry about that fifth position as well, because Malia is right behind him in that number 20 car. John Malia doing a great job, currently sitting in that sixth position, started ninth. He has closed up on the battle for the fifth position and fourth position as Polisek gets turned. He is turned around along with the likes of James Huth. That goes into the tire barrier. This was going into turn 5 here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Both cars still turned around. Huth trying to get it fired back up. Polisek is able to pull away. No damage to the car, but I believe Huth might have some damage to that nose.
Maybe just a little bit, but it was another sporting move from James Huth, part of the sporting code that he helped to rewrite with his actions at Watkins Glen, and a very sporting move from Huth to pull over and make sure he didn't go before Polisek was able to take off, and that will open up the door for John Malia to pass both of those drivers. So Malia now riding in the 4th spot ahead of Polisek and Huth, but a very big credit to James Huth for not taking advantage of his little incident with Polisek and giving Polisek his spot back.
Yes, very sportsmanship-like conduct from some of these drivers. I mean, it shows that these drivers are here to just have fun. They want to win or do well, especially at a track like WeatherTech Raceway, but also they want to be clean and try their best to be good sportsmen.
It's something that I think you see a lot in the PCA, and unfortunately it's not going to be enough to keep Huth from getting a pass-through penalty from race control for his role in that incident. So he'll have to come down this time by and serve a penalty, and that, I think, is going to slide him a little bit further back in this field. You see Brett Holmes has come up in the 06 machine. He's right on the rear bumper of Huth. He'll manage to get a spot. Kenny Brown, I think, will take advantage of this. Jason Lisner should be able to get a spot out of Huth's pass-through penalty. I have a feeling he's going to slide in right around Liam Rositas, Matthew Kikas, and Clifton Lipple when he comes back out on the racetrack.
As we're under 15 minutes to go here at WeatherTech Raceway, William Levesque has a 14.5-second lead over the likes of Gresham Wagner, who's just can't find a way. Started in 4th, but it was able to climb up to 2nd, but still has a tough time to try to find a way to close the gap. It's going to have to take a mistake from Levesque or some issues in front of Levesque to cause him to lose the ground on Wagner as he's going up the Ray Hall Straight.
As Huth, I think, is beginning to proceed down pit road, and he will come and serve the penalty for the contact he made with Michael Polisek, because Brett Holmes has managed to clear Polosek, I think, as well. And Polosek, I think, is just going to come down and get at least some fresh tires. I'd imagine he probably flat spotted the tires in the 45 pretty well in that incident. So both Polosek and Uth coming in for service, and that slides pretty much everybody in the top 10 up one more position. And as we look through this field and look for the good battles, you got Liam Radzitis and Matthew Kikis together, and then a little bit further back, maybe Charles Yao and David Stewart pretty close together. But Kikis and Huth, Kikis rather and Rositas and Huth, actually, I wasn't totally wrong because Huth pops out right behind these two, as I suspected he might. So I don't know if it's necessarily commentator's curse or crystal ball, but in either case, looks like Huth might be slowing.
Leader just went by.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how that worked, and I think it was Levesque jetting that clean racetrack. That's what that was about. So that makes that easy and makes that a little bit more straightforward to sort out. So we return our eyes to Radzitis and Kikis. This is Upper Canada versus Carolina racing each other for a spot in the top 10 as Kikis managed to get a little bit wide coming to the Rahal straight, and he'll have to gather it back up and try and gain track position once again, but not before your race leader, William Levesque, comes in to put Kikis a lap down.
With that, as soon as he gets by Rositas, that'll put 10 cars on the lead lap, with Mark Hughes as well being probably the last car on the lead lap. As we're seeing Rositas trying to find a way to stay clean as best he can as they go into turn 11, with William Levesque breathing down his neck to make a pass and put him a lap down as well.
I have a feeling that Rositas is going to see who's coming in his rearview mirror, and I don't think he's going to give Levesque too much trouble once they get back to it. In the meantime, though, we'll jump a little bit further.
Oh, trouble for Polosek. He is in the barriers.
So Polosek in trouble once again. I have a feeling that's probably cold tires more than anything else for that number 45. Well, cold tires, maybe a little bit of help as well, this time from Shabal Banyopadhyay.
Yep, looks like both of them did not get a proper way of the braking points for both drivers. Shabal did not see that. We saw Michael checking up early on in that corner. He decided to make and ended up making contact. He decides to pull off the course, and he will probably be receiving a penalty, which he just has received.
Hit that for, I think, his 30th incident point as we slide a little bit further up the racetrack and take a peek here. Big runs for Brett Holmes and Jason Lisner as those two go at it for a little bit. And Lisner was able to get around Holmes. I wasn't sure if Holmes just let up in turn 11 and let Lisner by, or whether or not he didn't get the greatest exit out of 10. But in either case, Lisner now up into the top 5 and Holmes back to 6th.
As Brett Holmes gives the position over to Jason Lisner as they go down the front straightaway. Lisner now going to pull a little bit of a gap over Brett Holmes as they make the run into turn 1 and set up for the Andretti hairpin. Brett Holmes in the 06 having a great run. Started in 13th, was able to climb up as he's trying to find a way to, as they go through the double apex of the Andretti hairpin, to try and find a way to get back by Jason Lisner as they go into turn 3.
So Lisner beginning to stretch this out and begin to push this a little bit further and push his gap a little bit further over Brett Holmes as they come through the corkscrew now. And Holmes is in a very, very tricky spot, I think, coming down Rainy Curve. It's one of those places where you want to push, but you also know that you don't want to blow everything up and give up what you have behind you, because Kenny Brown is not that far back. He's only 2 seconds back of Holmes, and you'll see him popping the screen ever so slightly here as Holmes begins to make his run down the front stretch. Brown is right there. It's very visceral image there. So one of those cases where you can't go too crazy. If you're wondering where James Huth has come out in all of this after his incident with Michael Polosek, the answer to that question is P11. We scored 1 lap down right behind Matthew Kikis, and not all that far back of Kikis either. Could be a good battle here for the 10th spot as Kikis pushes on and Huth tries to regain some of the track position that he lost in his incident with Polosek some 5-10 minutes ago.
He is closing on the back bumper of the likes of Matthew Kikis as they cross the start-finish line. We are closing in to almost 5 minutes left to go on the clock here. So time is of the essence for the likes of James Huth to get back inside the top 10. As they come out of the Andretti hairpin, we see James is going to try to take a look to the outside, thinks of it. Can't quite close the gap right now to get by Matt. As Matt goes into the gravel a little bit, this could give the opportunity for James to come in, but thinks twice of it, back out a little bit as they come out of turn 4 and make the run to turn 5.
Yes, they continue to push on down into a big corkscrew bit there. They come through Rainy Curve, and Kikas and Rositas also up there in that mix too, just a little bit ahead of this of notes. So if there's anything that happens to Rositas, he could back up, and it could be Kikas and Huth, and Rositas all fighting for 9th and 10th and 11th. But Kikas and Huth, the battle to watch at the moment.
These two are putting on a great battle right now to show right here on screen as they're getting ready to head back into the Andretti hairpin. James laid into the braking in between that 1 and 2 brake marker zones to try to get as much speed to carry into there, but has to back off just a little bit as Matthew Kikas is trying his best through turn 3, keeps it off the gravel trap this time as they set up for turn 4, both of them hitting the curbing as well, getting a good run. Now this is the chance for James to try to utilize a little bit of a slipstream to set up, maybe close the gap before they get to turn 5, but just not close enough to close into the gap, as unfortunately for our fans of Michael Polasek, he has took it behind the wall. His day is done.
So just right at the end of this Polasek come down, and it's been a very tumultuous second half of the race. Came in early on the old tires, and then got into it with Hoot, got into it with another car, the 770 of Sabal Banyapatia, and it just never seemed to stop at that point. And he eventually just said, let me just pull behind the wall, regroup, and we'll come back to it next week. So he'll go back behind the wall, probably finish somewhere in the 20s, and Matthew Kikas will try and maintain his position over Hoot. Turn our attention a little bit further back to Charlie Yao, who currently is racing with Jonathan Schum. Those two going after it for 18th and 19th at the moment.
Yeah, Charles Yao has been running pretty good, been running inside that top 18, top 19 all night long, currently sitting in that 19th as he's trying to find a way to get by Jonathan Schum as they come out of the Rainy Curve. Schum doing a great job, started back in 25th position in that 97 Porsche as they come out of turn 10. Schum has a little bit of the ground loss as Yao comes in to turn 11, laid into the braking zones, now about a car lane, as now Schum makes a mistake, gets a little bit wide and loose coming out of there. Here comes Yao. He's going to try to take a look to the inside. Schum shuts the door as they come into turn 1.
So Schum has shut the door, and you've got Charlie Yao right behind him trying to dive into the Andretti hairpin. It nearly makes contact and then gets a little bit crossed up himself, so he'll lose a bit of time. And Schum is another one of the Carolinas region drivers going up against Yao, who is the lone driver in Series 2 of the PCA for the Coastal Bend region. Bit of a different one. Officially hails from Mission, Texas, but he's not too far away from Brownsville and everywhere down on the Texas Panhandle. That's where Charlie Yao counts home. And the Coastal Bend region represents Brownsville, Corpus Christi, Laredo, and other communities down that way as you work your way towards the Mexican border.
Not far up the road either is the likes of Michael Masters sitting in that 17th position, doing a great job here tonight as well as he's worked his way up through the field tonight at WeatherTech Raceways. Currently just sitting in that same position he started in 17th. Has no issues, but has to hold off the likes of Schum as we're closing into those final minutes.
This is the best battle on track without question. Here comes Yao, big dive into 11, and he's going to get the spot. A really brave move into that braking zone. Just made sure to lay on those front tires and lay on the front brakes and managed to get the spot away from Schum. So move Charlie Yao up into 18th. Schum will slide back into the 19th spot as we look around the racetrack. The other best battle right now, still, probably not to your surprise, Matthew Kikas and Liam Rositas. Those two still nose to tail as we work our way towards the final few minutes of tonight's race. And here comes Kikas with the big move. He's going to try and do the same thing that Yao did, and he might just be as successful. They'll go side by side down the front straightaway. Rositas managed to get the run on the outside and hang on to the spot, but I suspect Kikas will have a look when they get to the Andretti hairpin.
He is definitely going to have a look as they go into the Andretti hairpin. Kikas laid into the braking zone as they hit the first apex. Rositas goes a little bit wide to set for the second apex as they have a little bit of lap traffic coming up in front of Brett Holmes, who had actually, this is going to be for position, as Holmes had a penalty for a pass through. Don't quite know what the penalty was for, but Rositas now has his eyes set on him to break into the top 8.
Rositas now trying to pressure and see what he can do, wondering if Mark Huth is probably the reason why Holmes had an issue. Huth slid way back, and I think ended up in some form of, or actually, no, I take that back. Huth was able to clear Holmes. That's probably why. So that explains a little bit more, but you are right. Brett Holmes not terribly far away from Rositas and Kikis, and this trio will likely be your best battle on track as we round out round 1 of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series.
Should be closing in and probably about 2 laps to go here for William Levesque in that 144 Porsche as he's going into the Andretti hairpin. Has a couple more laps to do. He has Dewey King in front of him. Car number 24 sitting in the 27th position. He's had an interesting night sitting in that position as he's currently driving kind of the Pink Pig throwback.
If you don't love the Pink Pig throwback, do you really have a soul? That's my question.
Or could you be considered even a Porsche fan?
Yes, this is also true. Although there probably is, I know there's going to be someone in chat who says, no, I don't like the Pink Pig. And I'll say, well, what about the Rothman scheme then?
Well,
we'll probably find common ground because there's so many great paint schemes on Porsches over the years. Also, I have to give a shout out. I think of the Martini paint scheme and then the Brumos scheme as well. It's two of
my
the
all-time
favorite
favorite
schemes that jump out to me as we work our way towards the final lap here.
I mean, when you think of those certain companies, as well as, you cannot think of without thinking Porsche with those types of companies. I mean, synonymous with seeing them win at races such as Le Mans, and even here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. I can remember watching some of the races of the GT1 era, where we see the 911s running here back in the late 90s. As Levesque goes to the inside, almost made contact with Rositas by the looks of it, but was able to avoid any of his major issues and pull away as he's got a final lap.
Was about to say that Levesque is taking the white flag and is now just trying to pick his way through the lap traffic and make sure that he doesn't end up in trouble as he works his way through the lagoon section for the last time and will make his way up the hill and begin his climb towards the Rahal Straight and the corkscrew.
Through the course, heading up the Rahal Straight for the final time, William Levesque. One word for him only: domination. I mean, from start to finish, sat on the pole and has led just about every lap here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as he comes out of the rainy curve for the final time.
Into turn 11 and into turn 12, and it's going to be a very, very easy one for the Canadian. On the brakes into turn 11, one more little quick turn to get back out of the front stretch, back across the start-finish line, and back to victory lane. William Levesque is your winner of round 1, Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series, and we'll wait to see how everyone else shakes out as he's done and dusted. Gresham Wagner going to come home in second if he can keep it together for one more corner, and he'll get on the binders into turn 11, get on the brakes, pull that hard left to get back to the front stretch, and Wagner is going to come across the line and finish in second.
Trying to find our last podium driver, John Cook, who just now came out of turn 11 for the final time. No pressure at all. He has worked his way up from a little bit of issues, but has still remained in that third position. John Cook will round out your podium finish.
So we'll turn our eyes back to Rositas and Kikis. This battle still running their white flag lap. And funny that you mentioned the 98 911, the GT1 911 is, I'm fairly certain that's what Rositas' scheme is supposed to be. As Rositas works his way up the hill, Kikis is still there, but it's about maybe half a second back from Kikis to Rositas. So I think the advantage here will go to the Upper Canada region driver if he can hang on and keep it clean. But that's a lot easier said than done. But he got the corkscrew nailed down pretty nicely, and that's far and away the trickiest section that he has left.
It does indeed, as they come out of the rainy curve for the final time. Brent Holmes trying to find a way to get by, but it's going to be too little too late. Liam Radzitis is actually coming down pit road. I think they already received. They already took the checkered flag by the looks of it.
So they've all taken the checkered flag, and we even got thrown for a loop. So,
race to pit road. It was a race to pit road.
The race to pit road, because, shoot, to be fair, if I had track time at Laguna Seca like this, am I going to take advantage of it as much as I can? Yes, and yes.
Yes.
And maybe yes, and maybe yes.
Oh, add up several more yeses after that.
Yes, because we heard you liked your yeses, so you should take your yeses and have a little bit more fun with your yeses. In either case, we're going to take a quick commercial break and then come back. We'll go through our full field rundown as usual, and then we'll hear from our podium finishers. You're watching coverage of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series here on the iRacing Esports Network.
The lady in black.
Yarborough's trying to pass. Cale Yarborough's over the wall.
The track too tough to tame.
They're parked for the debris and there was nowhere else to go except through it, and I slid in the back of them and hit them.
Darlington Raceway. 367 laps. 500 miles.
Everybody standing waving on Cale Yarborough, his 5th Southern 500 victory.
Two-time Winston Cup champion Terry Labonte at age 46 will take the checkered flag and win the 54th Southern 500.
The Southern 500. A legendary track. A legendary race. Now coming to Podium Esports. Qualifying on August 26th. Heat racing begins August 27th through 29th. All leading up to the main event on Labor Day. Earn your stripes at the Podium Esports Southern 500. Register today at podiumesports.com.
Of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Welcome back to coverage of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series, where Season 2, Series 2 is off and running. William Levesque dominates tonight's race and does a brilliant job to take the victory for the Rennsport region of the PCA and get his first win in Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series competition. At this point, we'll go ahead and run through the full field rundown as we usually do. And so we start obviously with Levesque, who comes away P1. Gresham Wagner starts in the second, or finishes rather in the second position after starting fourth. John Kirk started third, finished third. Even returns and strong returns for the driver out of the Chicago region, who also made his debut tonight in the PCA SRS, as did John Malia, who finishes in the fourth spot. Jason Lisner was your highest finishing driver out of the returning from Season 1. Kenny Brown finished in the sixth spot. He was the last car on the lead lap. Mark Huth finished in seventh. Eighth belonged to Brett Holmes. Liam Radzitis finished in ninth, and Matthew Kikas rounded out the top 10.
Finishing in 11th will go to James Patak, followed by Clifton Lipple in 12th position with Michelle Levesque in 13th. Carlos Lopez will come home in 14th position with Michael Masters in 15th position. Charles Yao will come home in 16th after a great battle with Jonathan Schum in 17th and David Stewart in 18th. Jonathan Waltman will come home 19th, and Cameron Leslie will round out your top 20.
21st belongs to Rich Minkler out of the Rocky Mountain region. Bruce Robinson finished in the 22nd position. Joseph Stiefel finished in 23rd, and Alberto Fonseca out of the Pacific Northwest finished 24th. Michael Nyden finished in 25th. Dewey Kang was 26th. 27th belongs to Sebal Banyopadhyay. James Huth finished in 28th. 29th was Donald Binkley, and Matthew Mitchell finished in 30th.
31st will go to Robert Go, followed by Jake Steinbrink in 32nd. Michael Polasak, unfortunate for him, was a front runner all race long. He will come home 33rd after some incidents late in the going. Jonathan Patterson will come home in 34th position with Francois Grayling in 35th. Leon Van Handel will come home in 36th position with Matthew Epstein in 37th, Lane McNeil in 38th, and Leif Peterson 39th.
And that rounds out your finishing order for this first race of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. As we turn from the full field rundown to our podium interviews, and we start with your race winner. And with a very, very strong performance, to say the least, out of the Rennsport region of the PCA, William Levesque. Where did you learn to find this much speed, and what were your keys in trying to get around this pace faster than anybody else?
Well, I've been doing this for a while, so I guess it comes from a lot of time.
A lot of time, a lot of experience. I take it that you probably have a soft spot for Laguna Seca as well. So what do you love so much about this circuit, especially compared to some of the other circuits on the schedule for the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series?
Well, I like kind of old school tracks that don't permit too many mistakes, so no runoffs really. So I guess I like the track for that reason.
A narrow track, that makes a lot of sense, since we know that Laguna Seca isn't necessarily the widest of places. And to be able to get a win on debut here in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series against a very strong and stout group of racers and of drivers, to get the win tonight on debut, I have to believe means a lot to you. So can you tell us in your own words what this victory means?
Well, I guess it's looking good for the championship, considering my pace today. Obviously, the goal is to win it, so for that, it's fine. But I think this championship is going to be not only about pace, but as we've probably seen today, a lot of traffic management, because there's a lot of cars on track, lots of drivers with far different skill levels. So I guess that's an entire skills entirely to manage all that traffic.
Definitely a valid point, and I think we'll see that come up more than a few times over the course of this season. So, William, before we let you go, as always, we'd like to give you a chance to say thank you to your sponsors, your supporters, and everyone that's behind you in your run to victory this evening.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll thank my dad first, because he's the one that got me into this championship. He was in this race, actually. He finished 13th, I believe. Other than that, I'll thank the guys at NX Racing, my sim racing team, and all our sponsors, SimLab, V-Racing, and SimUcube. So I guess that's it.
In any case, William, a very strong debut here in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. So congratulations from all of us at Podium Esports, and congratulations on behalf of the PCA for your first victory. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, thanks.
There is William Levesque, who comes away with the victory for the Rennsport region. That's Ottawa, and then most of Quebec, namely Montreal and Quebec City, all part of that region. So no surprise, the Francophone driver comes away with a very, very strong result for them. We turn our attention now to P2. That belonged to Gresham Wagner, and he is with our Taylor Burris.
Here was finishing second here today at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, Gresham Wagner. Gresham, a great performance for you here today. Tell us about how your race was going for you.
Well, it was a little bit hectic at the start, but we kind of fell into line there until the first pit stops, more or less. It was a lot calmer the first half than the second half once we started getting lap traffic. But I don't know. I came out of the pits in second and had about a 5 second gap and just kind of cruised from there because nobody was really going to catch William, and I just wanted to stay clean and keep the rest of the field behind me.
Yes, and early on we saw you having to battle with the likes of Polasek and Cook. Tell us how you were able to hold off those two competitors.
Yeah, I got a little bit lucky with lap traffic to get by them in the first place, but once I was in second, I saw they pitted early, so I knew I needed to have a clean pit stop and to come out with a little bit of a gap to help my chances. So I cut it really close on fuel, and it ended up coming back at the end because I did have to fuel save a little bit the last few laps to make it, but it ended up being the right call because I had a little bit of a buffer when I did come out of the pit.
Oh, it showed definitely. It was a great performance for you today here at the race. One of the questions we also wanted to ask was due to the fact that since you are a valued PCA member, we wanted to know where you were from.
The first settlers region. I'm from Southeast Virginia.
All right. So looking forward probably to going to VIR later on in the season.
Yeah, I'll probably make a trip up there at some point. I know the runoffs are also going to be there this year, so that should be a good event.
Yes, indeed. And we look forward to watching you race here on the PCA esports race here coming up. And congratulations again for finishing second here at WeatherTech Raceway.
Thank you.
Gresham Wagner.
P2, yeah. And no surprise, I think there might be something in the water in that first Settlers region. We know Jason Lisner was one of the fastest drivers out of Series 1, and he came away with a top 5 tonight. So you've got two first Settlers region drivers in the top 5. I think that's going to be your best combined average finish of any drivers or any regions that had more than one driver in tonight's race. So really, really strong runs from all the folks in southeastern VA. But we turn our attention now to another debutant in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series tonight out of the Chicago region, who comes home with a third place finish. John Cook. Yeah, I hear you getting a little bit excited. There's a bit of pride, and in fairness, why not? Why not?
Yes, very exciting. Thanks for having me, and I want to say congratulations to Gresham and William, and a lot of fun that race.
Now, you were not part of the first series of the PCA SRS, but you've joined on board for season 2. So talk about what inspired you to get involved with the PCA SRS and why you decided to come out for this series.
Well, I was actually I wanted to participate in the inaugural season. Unfortunately, I had a shoulder injury that put me out. I frequently race with James and Mark Huth, the Huth brothers, and I was going to join them, but I made it this season, and it's a lot of fun, and yeah, great racing.
So there's been a bit of a slow burn buildup for this. This is something that you've been eyeballing for a while, knowing that you wanted to be a part of Series 1, but just didn't have the chance to get to it while you were recuperating from your shoulder injury. So to be able to come out and finally get your shot and then be as quick as you've been, how satisfying is it for you to come away with a P3 finish?
It's extremely satisfying. I really couldn't ask for more. I was honestly, with such a big grid and a diverse skill set between the higher and the lower guys, and a small track at Laguna Seca, I was a little bit worried there was going to be a lot of incidents, and so I was just hoping to finish the race, to be honest. And finishing third, I couldn't have asked for more.
Thinking that you did a little bit more than just finish the race. I'd say a podium finish definitely is a little bit better than that. But there's the finish after the build-up to get to this. And then I imagine, I touched on it right at the beginning, that there's got to be a lot of pride, especially coming out of a region that has more than a few drivers. We mentioned on the broadcast that the Chicago region is the second most represented region in the entirety of this Series 2 of the PCA SRS, only behind the Peach State region, everybody around Atlanta and all that group there. So to come out of such a big region that's so well represented with 4 drivers and to be the fastest out of them, got to be a little bit of pride there too, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. Chicago region is just a great group. And Yeah, it's nice to be on top, and it's when you're competing, it's more. I'm more competing with myself than anything else, and just want to do the best that I can. And during the race, me and Michael had a good battle going on for a little bit, and that's what I'm here for. A lot of fun.
And I suppose we get a bonus question for you, since it does apply a little bit to you, since we're going to the closest track that will go to the Chicago region next week. Road America will be the site for round 2 of Series 2. So before we get there, what are your initial thoughts on what we should expect in Elkhart Lake next Friday night?
I think expect another really good race from everyone. Road America is my favorite track. It's my home track, and it's a great track. It's a lot larger than this track at Laguna, so it's going to be a little bit different. But I think it's going to be a lot of close racing.
And as always, before we let you go, John, a chance to send your thank yous, your shout outs, and let everyone know who makes it happen for you and everybody behind this 997 car.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the PCA guys, Doug and Jim and everyone who made this possible. I'd like to thank iRacing. I'd like to thank you guys for broadcasting this and getting the word out for sim racing. And I'd like to thank Jimmy Gita at Virtual Racing School for showing me how to drive this car.
Well, John, congratulations on your podium finish. We're glad to finally have you aboard the PCA SRS, and we look forward to seeing you compete for the win next week at Road America.
Thank you.
There's John Cook, your P3 finisher, and at this point, time for us to turn our attention to the Borough of Final Thoughts with Taylor Burris.
Well, as we saw here today at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, it showed that skills was the key factor, as we saw from William Levesque to take home the checkered flag with pure domination. But also having to manage the way through the likes of lap traffic was a key major factor as well, in order to try to get the best possible finish, as well as making sure to get the least amount of penalties. So those are some of the thoughts that I think that we need to burrow down the hatches.
The puns will never stop, if you were wondering. So apologies to all of you who thought that there was going to be a chance that they might take a break. But that's not how we do things here at Podium Esports and the PCA. But we will remind you that even though we're done tonight, we're back on the airwaves. There are 2 chances to hear Taylor and I on calls. Sunday night over on our regular home, the Podium Esports Network, we've got round 2 of the iRacers Lounge Podcast Oval Series. The Xfinity cars and the trucks will race on the same track at the same time, and sports car style multi-class oval racing from Iowa Speedway. We'll begin that broadcast at 8:30 p.m. Eastern over on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, the home of the Podium Esports Network. And then next Friday night, we return here with round 2 of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. A brilliant road course up there. Everybody in the Midwest knows it very well. I think a lot of people around the scene nationally know it pretty well too. We look forward to bringing you coverage from Road America starting at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time here on the iRacing Esports Network. At this point, I think it's time to go ahead and close out everything from Laguna Seca. So, on behalf of everyone at the PCA, and with a very, very big thank you to the likes of Doug Atkinson and Jim Hemming, and then for everyone at Podium Esports, for DJ Lyon, for Gary Sexton, for a whole host of people like John Theodore and company, for Cisco Scaramuza, our producer, for Taylor Burris alongside me in the booth. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching this coverage of round 1 of season 2 of the PCA SRS. A big congratulations to William Levesque on his victory. We look forward to seeing you 1 week from tonight, 9:15 p.m. Eastern, here on the iRacing Esports Network from Road America.